The Allen Lund Company thanks all the hard-working drivers who are moving goods across the country. We can't do it without you.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
OOIDA's advocacy efforts expand far beyond the headquarters. Executive Vice President Lewie Pugh recently visited the nation's capital to meet with lawmakers. We speak with him today. FMCSA is working on a new method for the safety fitness determination, essentially how the agency determines if a motor carrier is safe enough to be on the road. And OOIDA has some ideas of what the agency should not do. I'll talk with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. And finally, when the general public thinks about trucking, the topic may turn to some of the new technologies, such as hydrogen or electric trucks. And Marty Ellis has seen one. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is opening up a comment period related to lease purchase agreements. It's part of a congressional directive to look at lease purchase agreements and their impact on owner-operators and trucking businesses. The information provided during the 30-day comment period will help inform the Truck Leasing Task Force as it moves forward with recommendations to FMCSA. FMCSA is requesting that truckers submit lease purchase agreements for the task force to review in advance of its next meeting. That includes as much information as possible, including financial documents associated with your lease agreement, terms of the lease, and how the arrangement was marketed to you, plus more. FMCSA also noted it wants drivers to share how well they understood the terms of the agreement and whether they had any real negotiating ability during the signing process. 3 of the questions outlined in the notice focus on the most common problem with lease purchase agreements, the ability to successfully complete them. It's a topic FMCSA's Truck Leasing Task Force has discussed in depth. During their January meeting, Jim Jefferson of OOIDA's Business Services Department said the lease purchase model is attractive for understandable reasons, then told the story of a truck driver whose lease purchase agreement ended poorly, something that is all too common.
Okay, so one of the things that we got to ask ourselves is, why is there a lease purchase? I mean, what makes this program so important? And I think one of the answers to that is the folks that are doing it. And those are typically the folks that can't get a truck through your normal channels, but their dream is to own a truck and be a truck driver. And this is the only avenue that they have for doing it. I mean, you get a lot of folks that are new in the industry. They don't understand a whole lot of this stuff. And when they're presented with their 40-page lease purchase contract, it's presented in such a way that, here's this contract, go ahead and get it signed so we can get you out there. We got a truck ready to go. And they don't read it, and they don't understand that they're signing an agreement that's going to bind them to whatever their weekly payment is for the remainder of that contract, regardless of whether or not they have that truck. And there's so many small fees that are added in. At the end of the day, the settlements that they're not getting $1,300 or $1,500 a week. They're lucky to get a couple $100 a week.
Jefferson also told the story of an OOIDA member who made it to the end of their lease purchase agreement, expecting to get the title, only to find out they had been hit with more than $30,000 in maintenance fees that were never disclosed. As FMCSA fields more information, it is important to note that the comment period is a public process and documents submitted can be viewed by the public. However, because many of these lease purchase agreements contain confidential business and financial information, there are additional steps you'll need to take to keep that information private. For more information on how to do that, we've got a full write-up with additional details on landline.media. And although it's not finalized, the task force has discussed having its next meeting at the Mid-America Trucking Show next month in Louisville. More problems for another self-driving car company. Waymo is recalling the software used in its autonomous vehicles after 2 collisions with the same vehicle just minutes apart. This happened in Phoenix back in December. In a blog post published by Waymo, the company said 2 Waymo cars came across the same tow truck that was pulling a pickup truck. The pickup was being towed backwards and improperly at an angle rather than being lined up straight behind the tow truck. That meant the front end of the pickup was sticking out into a turn lane next to the lane the tow truck was driving in. The Waymo cars didn't adjust and hit the pickup. Neither robotaxi had anybody inside and nobody was hurt. Waymo voluntarily recalled its software afterward and says changes have since been made to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Meanwhile, California lawmakers and labor unions have autonomous vehicles in their crosshairs. The groups held a rally outside the state capitol in Sacramento on Monday in support of Assembly Bill 2286, which would require a human safety operator to be inside an autonomous vehicle while it's running, whether that be for testing, transporting goods, or transporting passengers. It's an exact replica of a similar bill that passed the legislature last year, but was vetoed by California Governor Gavin Newsom. Things have changed a bit since then, though. A number of high-profile incidents involving autonomous vehicles have made the headlines, including earlier this month, when a Waymo robotaxi was torched during a Lunar New Year celebration in San Francisco. State lawmakers from both sides of the political aisle were at Monday's rally. So were Teamsters leaders, setting the stage for a pressure campaign in the weeks and months to come. New details tonight about a crackdown on crime in Northern California. Governor Gavin Newsom recently announced plans to deploy 120 California Highway Patrol troopers to the Oakland and East Bay areas in response to a spike in crime. That includes cargo theft, along with retail crime, violent crime, and auto thefts. The governor's office announcing that they arrested 71 people in the campaign, recovered 145 stolen vehicles, and seized illegal firearms and drugs. Charges are pending for those who got caught up in the 5-day crackdown in what was described as a temporary operation. The governor's office says moving forward, the CHP will be conducting additional unannounced surge operations in the East Bay. Another big city on the East Coast is considering a congestion pricing plan. The idea was brought up for debate within the Boston City Council on Wednesday. Proponents said congestion pricing would help alleviate traffic problems, improve air quality in urban areas, and provide revenue for road improvements. But there has been some pushback in other cities that have floated the idea. New York City, for example, is moving closer to congestion pricing in the central business district of Manhattan. The recommended cost for large trucks is $36. Boston has yet to lay out a pricing structure for its proposed plan. The Federal Highway Administration is fast-tracking $1.2 million in quick-release emergency relief funds to replace a bridge in Vermont that was destroyed by a tanker truck fire in December. The Vermont Agency of Transportation says they'll work to reopen Bridge 129 on Vermont Route 14 in Irisburg as soon as possible. Traffic between Irisburg and Coventry is currently being detoured, which adds about 4 miles to the commute between the towns. The Georgia Ports Authority has announced plans to build a new overpass. It's designed to reduce the impact of truck traffic on surrounding neighborhoods. The Georgia Ports Authority says the $29 million project will link Ocean Terminal to Route 17. Completion is set for sometime in 2026. And finally, if you're planning on a trip to Louisville next month to attend the Mid-America Trucking Show, there's been a change to the parking situation. MAT's organizers have moved the truck parking community site to a grass lot across from Gate 1 at the Kentucky Expo Center. As in past years, parking is free, and there is a shuttle service for trips to and from the show, courtesy of TA Petro. TA Petro will also be providing hot showers and portable restrooms within the lot. The Mid-America Trucking Show runs for 3 days starting March 21st. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, Ashley Blackford talks with OOIDA Executive Vice President Lewie Pugh about his recent trip to our nation's capital. I'll find out what the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is considering regarding the safety fitness determination from OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs Jay Grimes, and we'll hear about an encounter with a hydrogen electric truck from Marty Ellis of the Spirit of the American Trucker. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the program. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman, your leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Let us help you avoid costly downtime and repairs by visiting capitalreman.com today. Use code OOIDA10 to receive your member benefits.
Stock up on Howe's Diesel Treat, the nation's most trusted anti-gel. And to be safe from the harshest winter conditions, make sure you have Howe's Diesel Lifeline on hand, the fastest-acting gelling rescue product. Available nationwide, Howe's products are designed to keep you rolling through the toughest conditions. Visit howesproducts.com.
Attention professional drivers, are you behind on your tax filings? You owe money? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. You watch the road, we'll keep an eye on the IRS. Call now. 855-976-4291.
Buckling up keeps everyone safe on the roads. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
In line now. Welcome back. Lewie Pugh joins me now. Lewie, thank you for coming in.
Hey, it's always my pleasure.
Now, recently you got cleaned up, went to D.C., and I think a suit and a tie should be your everyday look. I'll talk to the higher-ups here and see what we can do. Get a dress code for you.
I think there's people out there who disagree with that.
I don't know. I thought you looked great.
When Joe DiLorenzo worked for the agency, which Joe was a great guy, he used to say I was the most uncomfortable-looking person he ever seen in a suit.
Well, from the pictures, you looked good. So, now what were you up to there?
Well, I went to D.C. for about a week. We were down there. The D.C. guys, of course, who are constantly up on the Hill, they had me come in and do some meetings and some catch up with some lawmakers, some old friends, some new friends, and just talk about trucking and the issues, about what our members hear and what they face, along with some of my, I guess, stuff that I faced and stuff as well. But mainly we were speaking about speed limiters and truck parking, of course, and the overtime exemption, Fair Labor Standards Act exemption, and also the bathroom bill. Congressman Nels, in fact, I met with Congressman Nels while I was down there, and Congressman Nels is really wanting to get a push on that in T&I and start getting that bill moved through T&I and hopefully to the House floor. So I'm sure I'll say this multiple times during this interview, but, reach out to your lawmakers about some of these bills, especially this bathroom bill and stuff, and ask them to get on board and support Congressman Nels because he's really supporting truckers, so let's support him back.
Now, I think oftentimes truck drivers might feel like, everyone in government is against them. But you visited with a few congressmen, one you just mentioned, that they seem to really do have an understanding of the world of trucking. Talk to me about those visits with some of those representatives.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that pretty much most of America thinks most of the government's against them, not just truckers.
True. That is true.
But, yes, with that being said, there's a lot of lawmakers in D.C. that are fortunately are there to do the right thing. Unfortunately, a lot of times you don't hear about them or get too much because they're not worried about being on the news and cable news networks and stuff like that to beat their chests and rah, 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 look at me. They're busy trying to do what the right thing is for the taxpayers and for their constituents. And, Babin is always, Brian Babin from Texas. He's a good one. I met with him down there. A very good friend of truckers, understands trucking. In fact, he drove a truck for a little bit. He had a CDL at one time. And when he was going through school and stuff, I think. But he's a very interesting man, very common, normal person and down-to-earth guy and really gets it. And he's always looking to help truckers. Congressman Bost, of course, as well. And there's many other down there in D.C. And, on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately we get wrapped up sometimes, too much wrapped up into what we see on cable news or on radio talk shows and far right and far left. And, we as OOIDA, we are bipartisan. We have to work with whoever's in power at the time, and that power changes, so you never want to burn a bridge if you don't have to. And unfortunately, there are good and bad people on both sides. Some of the people that you think would be great for trucking on either side really are not, and some of the ones that you never hear about really are.
Now, there's so many things that truckers are concerned about right now. You mentioned a few of them: truck parking, broker transparency, electric trucks, overtime pay. I could go on and on. How do you decide what issues to focus on when you have these visits to D.C.?
A lot of it has to do with timing. Also, a lot of it has to do with who's in power. And, we touch on certain things in probably every visit, but we really we know as far as on the House side that the parking has already moved through T&I, so now it's on the House floor. So really, it's just we're waiting for something to come. Most of the people I meet with are from T&I, usually, because that's one of our big committees that we work with on the House side. So most of those people already know parking or understand parking. They're on the parking bill. In fact, I think pretty much all of them but 4 or 5 are on the bill. So really, we don't spend a lot of time talking about parking. Maybe like we talked about bathroom bill because, again, Congressman Nels really wants to start working on that, and he's let us know that. So we talk about that and the importance of that. speed limiters, of course, we saw from the last hearing with the administrator from FMCSA, or the previous administrator now. We saw the importance of that and how much that got brought up. So we were educating, revisiting folks who we have talked to this about before, but they still haven't co-sponsored, especially in western states and some of the southern states where they have bigger speed limits, to remind them, to try to get them on board. Those are especially things that we talk to with like Republican lawmakers. Then when it comes to Fair Labor Standards Act stuff, we're kind of re-explaining that. There's a lot of false information down on Capitol Hill scurrying around, putting out by opponents of this. And so we were trying both, and that's probably something that's more favorable by Democrats. But we have a Republican, Van Drew, who actually introduced the bill. So we're trying to calm the fears of the Republicans who are getting some of this false information and stuff.
Now, Congressman Brian Babin and Jefferson Van Drew, who you just mentioned, they recently signed on to the bathroom access bill this week, and Van Drew signed on to the Drive Act. Did you meet with both of them?
Yes. We did meet with them, and we both talked to them and encouraged them to do. Van Drew I'm glad he signed on with the Drive Act, because we weren't sure, because speed limiters aren't really a big deal to people on the East Coast because they already have small speeds. They don't have big speed limits anyway. But he understands. Again, Van Drew's another guy. This is a common guy who, when I met with him the first time, we were talking how he worked in a concrete block plant, and he's done all these other jobs before he ever became a dentist. So he knows what blue-collar people, and, he didn't grow up with a silver spoon, per se, in your mouth, is a cliche. So he gets it, and he understands it. And when we talked about the Drive Act and these kind of things with Van Drew, he understood it may not really affect his state one way or the other, but he sees the problem with this being a nationwide rule. He also understands the fact that states probably know better what their speed limit should be than some bureaucrat in Washington at FMCSA.
Is it encouraging to hear that they signed on to those things, presumably after you met with them?
Yeah, we hope that as Todd says, we hope I charmed them.
How do you try and stand out when these lawmakers probably hear from different groups and organizations every day talking about different issues? What approach do you take to make sure that they understand the issues at hand and the importance of them doing something about them?
Well, I think you know me well enough.
Well, yes. I can see how you would stand out.
So I stand out. I don't really talk like they do, or probably really act like they do, nor dress like they do. Although a lot of them wear cowboy boots. I've known a lot of lawmakers.
Oh, well,
even Van Drew from New Jersey, he wears cowboy boots.
There you go.
So yeah, but I just be me. Mm-hmm. That's what I tell members all the time, because they're like, I tell members all the time, reach out to your lawmaker. Well, we'd rather you do because I don't know how to talk to them, and blah, blah, and I don't know how, But that's not true. You do know. You are there. You're talking to me.
Yeah.
Talk to a lawmaker just like you talk to another, another person. You're somebody in your family. Truckers are the experts on trucking issues. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there driving a truck right now is the experts on trucking issues. So pick up your phone and talk to your lawmaker. Be professional. We all know how to be professional and be polite.
Yeah.
And be professional, be polite. Tell them how things are affecting you good or bad, and how a law would affect you good or bad. Use real world experience. That's what they don't get. They get lobbyists coming in there all the time, and it's because not everybody has great lobbyists like we do.
Yes, exactly.
But they get a lot of lobbyists coming in there all the time who they don't even really understand their issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where our lobbyists, like Colin and Bryce and Doug and all of them and Jay, are so good, is they get it. They know they listen to our board. They listen to our members. They have a good understanding, a grasp on trucking. They've never drove a truck, but they understand laws and regulate rules a lot better than me and probably most truckers. So they can take that knowledge and they can understand how this bill helps or hurts a lot. But they can carry that into the office and say, my members, my board, whatever, say these things, and they have a good understanding. But then, like when I come down there, or sometimes we get a member or a board member or somebody else, they can talk too, and you can talk real world experience. And that's the thing. I guess when lawmakers, I think, appreciate it when people are genuine with them, because they don't get a lot of there's not a lot of, it's not against people from D.C., but there's not a lot of genuineism in D.C.
Yeah. How is this year different when it comes to talking with lawmakers with it being an election year?
Well, of course, they all want money.
Yep.
I mean, even when in an election year, they all want money. It just depends on the lawmaker, really, because some lawmakers, unfortunately, are in a really, really tough primary. Congressman Bost is one. It's really a shame. He's been a really good friend of truckers. I think he's a good friend of small business. He's a guy who gets it. He's a genuine person, tries to work across the aisle and get along and do what's right for his constituents. And unfortunately, he's in a very, very tight primary. So if you're in Congressman Bost district and a trucker or whatever, you need to tell your family, your friends, everybody get out there and vote for him in his primary, because I guess it's pretty tough. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about that. Some lawmakers, they're not concerned about the primary or their general. It just depends on where they're from. You take some people, some very depends on their district, just like what they're looking at. So, and we try to help and support how we can in any way we can at OOIDA. And, like I said, it's kind of crazy because it's just politics is off the rail right now, as we all know if we watch the news. It's just insane because, Congressman Bost, in my opinion, is a good conservative member of Congress. And if you're a conservative person, I think that would be somebody you would like. But the guy running against him, since Congressman Bost has been there a while, he's running, calling him an establishment, and he's running. He's to the right, and I don't even know how you really run much more to the right than Bost. But that's what they're trying to do. Now they're trying to paint him as a bad guy because he's been there too long. And I'm the first to admit there's some lawmakers that have been there way too long, but I don't think a guy like that has.
Now, I know we've discussed this before, but how important is it for members and every truck driver to contact their lawmaker to voice their opinion on trucking matters?
It's the most important thing you can do, honestly. I mean, it's not one of the most, because this is a business, and everything that Washington, D.C. does has an effect on your business. And I always said in trucking, I could figure out a better way to build a mousetrap to beat my competition. That wasn't a problem. The problem is beating Washington when they're putting regulations and stuff like that on you. That's something there's no workaround sometimes. So that's why it's very important that you need to be keeping your eye on a pulse on D.C. just as strictly as you're keeping an eye on a pulse on the bottom line of your trucking company and what your competition's doing, what your freight's doing, all that kind of thing. It needs to be part of that to make your business good and successful. And having a good relationship with your lawmaker, and I know that there are lawmakers out there that are never going to listen to you, depending on where you're at, but if you can get a good relationship with that lawmakers, and really it's their staffer who's you can talk to. I always tell people, call and ask who's handling transportation, try to get that person time after time after time. OOIDA doesn't have the money or the resources that the American Trucking Association and a lot of these large people that are working against you have. But what we do have is all you members out there, almost 150,000 people. You can make a difference. When we're in there talking to lawmakers, just like I was there last week talking about the DRIVE Act and the Restroom Bill and the Fair Labor Standards Act, if the people listening here would shoot their lawmakers all an email now that I've been there, or before we get there, either way, it makes a huge difference because like, we've heard about this, we know about this, or, yeah, that's what OOIDA was talking about, we better get on this. So, yeah, it's very, very, very important. It's easy to do if you don't know who it is. Go to fightingfortruckers.com. You can get all that information right there. It's a very easy format. You can send a message to your lawmaker just as fast, if not faster, than you can post something on Facebook or one of these other social bitching about it that isn't going to do any good.
Lewie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was OOIDA Executive Vice President Lewie Pugh talking about his trip to D.C. For more information on current issues and how to contact your lawmaker, you can visit fightingfortruckers.com. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackbird. Stay tuned for more after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Loadboard Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Loadboard Pro.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is working on a new method for the safety fitness determination. Essentially, the method the agency uses to determine whether a motor carrier is safe enough to be on the road. And OOIDA has some ideas of what the agency should not do in creating that new standard. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm Mark Rettig. I'm joined as always by Jay Grimes, OOIDA's Director of Federal Affairs. Jay, how are you doing?
Doing well, Mark. Good to be with you.
Well, glad to have you here. Before we go into too much detail here, can you just give us a basic definition? I mean, I know I kind of said what the safety fitness determination is, but I wonder if you can kind of sharpen up our definition a little bit.
Yeah, it's currently a compliance review to determine if a motor carrier is unfit to operate, and there's different procedures and calculations that the agency has to go through. They've kind of been working on trying to reform this process for a number of years for a number of reasons. One is kind of this confusion between the current ratings of satisfactory, unfit, and conditional. And when we saw the most recent notice last year that FMCSA is not really conducting the amount of compliance reviews necessary to really make an impact. Very small percentage of these that they're actually able to work through, given the amount of motor carriers that are in operation. Going back to 2016, I think FMCSA initially put out a proposal that they subsequently withdrew based on a number of concerns. They've kind of going to go back to the drawing table, and last year we saw an advance notice of proposed rulemaking on safety fitness determination that laid out quite a number of different questions that wanted industry feedback to kind of perhaps guide which direction the agency was going to go. They're still kind of reviewing those public comments, but in the meantime, they've issued what was referred to as a notice of data availability, not something we see very often from the agency, which mentioned a few different studies that have been published relating to transportation safety to kind of gather feedback on if FMCSA should rely upon these studies to kind of influence the safety fitness determination rulemaking process.
I wonder if you can give us an example of some of the data that they included there, because that's kind of interesting. I've never heard of that kind of notice from them.
Yeah, it was kind of a little eye-opening. There's certainly some rulemakings that have been put out there where we would have loved to see some of these academic studies and different reports be included in the public docket. They mentioned 5 different studies kind of looking at different in-vehicle monitoring systems was one, association between crashes and safety critical events, impact of federal compliance reviews of trucking companies in reducing truck crashes, effectiveness of forward collision warning and autonomous emergency braking systems, in-vehicle data recorder for evaluation of driving behavior and safety, and then one related to just the FARS fatality analysis reporting system and some coding that NHTSA has used over the years. And kind of the common theme from the reports they put out for reference was kind of leaning towards technology-based studies. And this was a question that they brought up in the initial advance notice of proposed rulemaking last year, and one that we raised considerable objection to, was this notion that adoption and use of technology systems be part of the safety fitness determination methodology. And we think that's really an unfair and unsafe way to go about things, that just adopting safety technologies or purported safety technologies doesn't actually necessarily improve safety performance or indicate that your ability to avoid crashes.
I want to get into some of what OOIDA offered in addition to that. Several different thoughts regarding different aspects of the safety fitness determination, and one of those was regarding the potential use of CSA, Compliance, Safety, Accountability, and the SMS, or Safety Measurement System.
Safety Measurement System, yep.
Right. Before we get into how those might be used here, what OOIDA's concerns are, I'm wondering, people, for the most part, know CSA. I don't know if they know SMS as well.
Yeah, these are separate components from safety fitness determination that are not used in the current safety fitness determination process, but are a way of measuring a motor carrier's safety performance. CSA is comprised of basics and is one component of the overall safety measurement system program that FMCSA has put into place. Our major concerns with the CSA and SMS programs, and since they've been in place since 2010, they have failed in their objective to reduce injuries, fatalities, and crashes. And the main reason for that is that these programs, incentivize compliance as opposed to actual safety performance. The methodologies used to compute these scores have some major flaws as well. The way they group different carriers into different categories raises some concerns. And Congress, agreed on that and required a National Academy of Sciences study back in 2015. That study has been completed and really made 6 recommendations for FMCSA to improve these systems. FMCSA is working to implement some of those recommendations. They've already rejected one of those on the item response theory model. So those changes are still coming down the line. But when you go back to the safety fitness determination proposal, again, when you kind of look through some of the questions in the advance notice that came out last year, do you have concerns that FMCSA wants to incorporate CSA and SMS into potential the new SFD, safety fitness determination restructuring? And we think that, again, is really going to be a bad idea when these systems right now, and understand they're going under their own individual reforms, but really have not had the safety improvements that FMCSA has said they were going to have back when they were implemented in 2010.
Another factor that OOIDA brought up is related to carriers that don't receive any rating under the safety fitness determination. How does that come about?
Yeah, so the vast majority of carriers are never going to see or receive a rating, especially on the small business side. And kind of the nature right now is that if you're not rated, we've seen some pushback from different brokers who won't do business with a carrier who doesn't have a certain rating from the FMCSA. And that's caused some concern for us. And whatever system ends up getting proposed and finalized, which is going to take a few years, we don't want to see carriers who do not receive a rating, who never get a rating, be penalized for that.
OOIDA has made a lot of points about things the agency should not do. I mean, the things you've mentioned, also inconsistency of data and so on. I'm wondering, what does the association think the agency should do in terms of the safety fitness determination? How should this system operate?
Yeah, well, it really has to look at actual safety performance. Are you avoiding crashes? Are you avoiding fatalities? That's one thing. Another component that never gets talked about in all this technology and beyond compliance is driver retention, driver compensation. These are factors that we know have a direct impact on improved safety performance. And this was another recommendation from the National Academy of Sciences report, was looking at those factors and what those impacts were on safety. And we've got a driver compensation study being carried out right now to perhaps look that is looking at that. Another factor, and really the main factor in all of this data analysis, is you have to have more consistent, more accurate data going into these systems if you're going to interpret the data coming out. Garbage in equals garbage out, and the inconsistency of data across states is so varied, it really creates a lot of problems and concerns. So the data collection, the data analysis process really need to be cleaned up, whether it's CSA and SMS or if it's the safety fitness determination process.
Let's go on to another topic here. FMCSA is asking truckers for their input when it comes to sexual assault and sexual harassment in the trucking industry. And what sort of information is FMCSA looking for? Have they told us what kind of input they want?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of information that they're seeking feedback on, and this is a request for information on a study that FMCSA is going to be undertaking to understand and quantify the prevalence and severity of sexual assault and sexual harassment experienced across the trucking industry, particularly among drivers. And FMCSA is looking on how to best design and conduct the study to identify, categorize, and assess the conducts and trends of sexual assault and sexual harassment in trucking. So they've laid out quite a few questions to gather feedback on. And really, this study and these questions have been the result of the FMCSA's Women of Trucking Advisory Board that was established back in the 2021 Infrastructure Investment of Jobs Act, and a committee that's been meeting throughout the past couple of years on a number of different aspects of trucking, really in hopes of and the goal of improving female recruitment, improving female retention, addressing some of these safety concerns, addressing some of these sexual assault and sexual harassment problems that have been, unfortunately, far too common in the trucking industry. So FMCSA is really wanting to get a better understanding of how this upcoming study should be set up, what kind of questions should it be looking to answer.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Women of Trucking Advisory Board, because we have talked about that before. You mentioned that this kind of comes out of that. Talk a little bit, if you would, about what that group is and what its mission was.
Yeah, so this was a committee formed a few years ago with female representation from all different aspects of the trucking industry, including drivers, trucking and trade associations, and I think there were some brokers on there. The bus industry was represented, and really looking at how can we bring more women into the industry, considering the makeup of not only the driver population, but jobs in trucking across the board. So they've had quite a few meetings on a range of different topics, and they're drafted a report that they're going to be finalizing that's going to be sent to FMCSA. From that report, FMCSA is going to put together some recommendations to Congress as well in hopes of implementing different policies and different measures that Congress, DOT, FMCSA can take that can make trucking more inclusive and more representative for women who want to enter the industry and for women who want to stay in the industry.
Getting back to the main topic of this, which is the upcoming study on sexual assault and sexual harassment, this isn't the first time that FMCSA has looked at the topic. There was a study back in 2022. Can you just briefly describe what that study found?
Yeah, so it was a 2022 study conducted by FMCSA, found that harassment and crime against female drivers and minority male drivers is, quote, prevalent. And a study found that many incidents went unreported, with most commenters saying they did not believe reporting the incident would make a difference, and that female truck drivers are particularly vulnerable to crimes that are sexual in nature and more likely to experience harassment from other truck drivers or trainers. So that study, I think, opened up a lot of eyes and really kind of made public, I think, a lot of the stories that we've heard from female drivers and throughout the years. And FMCSA did acknowledge some of the limitations of the previous research, and I think with this planned study, they're really going to be building upon that 2022 information. So they've put out a couple questions here that are going to help, I think, construct the study in the best manner possible.
Okay. We've run out of time, Jay, but a lot of good information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy when you're truck on a CAT scale.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. The talk among truckers these days is about trucking. That includes the issues surrounding the business, but mainly it's about the business. But in the general public, when people think about trucking, the topic may turn to some of the new technology, like electric trucks as one example. Marty recently saw one of those new trucks and shared what he saw with me.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you doing?
I am lovely, Mark. And you?
Very well, thank you, sir. Where are you at?
I am at the Pet Show in El Paso, Texas. That's I-10 exit number 37. I'll be here through the 17th. It has 257 parking spots, 14 showers, and a Black Bear diner.
Oh, we like those.
Absolutely. We'll take
We're
them.
very fond of the Black Bear Diner.
Yes, I always have leftovers when we're done.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way when I go there too, so that's an honest thing.
Exactly.
Well, I guess you saw a little bit of interesting new technology on the road the other day. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was walking the lot the other day and saw one of the new Nikola hydrogen over electric trucks. It's got a couple pictures of it. It looks like a European style cab over, which, I mean, that's what caught my eye about it. And then I, walked around it, and I was hoping to talk to the driver because I'd really like to know what his thoughts are. It was a SAIA truck, S-A-I-A. That's SAIA is the only one I've heard that sounds like a decent way to say their name, but it really looked interesting. I would like to know how the hydrogen fueling goes, or how much time, what they have to do to. Is there any certain things they have to wear when they do it, or do they always go back to their own terminal and they do it there? I'm not quite sure how that works, but I sure would have liked to known. It seemed like it was idling, but kinda and kinda not. You could tell that the air conditioning was on in it, so I don't know if the guy was taking a little nap or just running inside for a few minutes. But it was kind of neat seeing that new technology out in the wild, as I call it. And I'm not against any technology as long as it works, and as long as our government doesn't try to mandate things.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I'm like you. I'm curious about that. I knew there were electric trucks that were being tested out there. I did not know we already had a hydrogen over electric truck out there. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think that is, whether you agree with the hydrogen part or not, I always thought that diesel over electric would make a lot more sense since there's diesel almost everywhere you go. That's already in the infrastructure. And if we could do a little bit better job with the batteries and the weight and all, I think that would, in my mind, just as a regular old truck driver, that would make more sense than going straight to full electric or even above the hydrogen over electric.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out, but I'm glad you saw one of those. I can't wait to see the pictures.
Yeah, me too.
Well, in the meanwhile, there's a couple of other things that you were wanting to talk about, and one of them is headsets. And what kind of brings up this topic, Marty?
Well, we kind of, as truck drivers, we kind of live and die by our headsets. And, of course, mine was acting up the other day, so it got my mind to thinking. And I always ask people what they're using for headsets when they come in, or if I see something they have on and I'm don't know exactly the model or the make, or I always ask questions because that's how I got to the point where I am with headsets. I used to be a big fan of the big over-the-head, big over-the-ear, everything just on one side. that type of a headset, and it's gotten so big and clumsy, it got to the point where it's like, holy buckets, this is a whole lot to be hanging around in your head, especially if you leave it on and, go walking around the parking lot or something. And I've tried a few of the smaller ones, and so many of them, they go in your ear, and I just have never liked that. My ear gets itchy and hot, and got turned on to these bone conduction ones, and I really like those. Of course, everything is great until it stops working, but I do like basically the open ear style, so where you can hear other things happening than going around you. I've had different headsets where you really couldn't hear much, and you're walking along and you can't hear a truck pulling up behind you or somebody, coming alongside you. You can't hear that. And so the open ear ones I like a lot. I see a lot more truck drivers wearing them. If anybody is out there and wants to stop in, I'd love to talk to you about your headset and just kind of learn some of the new ones that are out there and what can be best for going down the road and still have good quality for the sound that you're talking to somebody, and of course the good quality for yourself to hear.
You caught my attention there with one of the terms you just used, bone conduction. What in the heck is a bone conduction headset, or did I misunderstand you?
No, that's correct. And actually I have a set on right now. These particular ones are made by Shocks, but they have other makers. And it rests right in front of your ear, not in your ear or on your ear, and it basically puts the sound through vibrations through the bone, your cheekbone, or back by your ear bone. It doesn't actually go, most of the sound doesn't actually go through your ear canal.
Wow. I don't know that. I'm not sure about that one.
I wasn't sure either. I first tried one, probably 10 years ago, and it didn't work for me. It was just a bad one. It didn't work at all. And so it was just a learning experience with spending the money. And then when I heard about these and saw a lot of people starting to wear them, it's like, well, let me give it one more try. And so that's what I did. And I'm sold on them. I sure like them. And I probably won't go back. No guarantees there, but I sure prefer them over most of the other ones.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I'll have to try one of those out.
Absolutely.
Okay. We got a little bit of time left, Marty. There was one other thing that you had brought up that kind of caught my attention, which is the challenges involved in changing out lights. What happened here?
Well, a couple of our lights, the LEDs, a lot of times they have several LED lights in, just the diodes for them. And a lot of times as they age, they'll start burning out, just doing one little diode at a time. And so we had some that were getting a little dim, and I wanted to change them out. And so when I was at Four States, we purchased some in there for the trailer. And when I went to go put them on, well, they didn't have the right end connectors, so had to find them. Had to basically lay on your back underneath the trailer, trying to get things wired up correctly. And it just seems like all the makers seem to want their own little different kind of plug-in instead of going with one straight plug-in for everything. So it just makes it a little bit more of a challenge, and I guess maybe a little more satisfaction when you finally got it done. So anybody that sees the trailer can tell me how they're looking.
Okay. Well, Marty, we just got a few seconds left. Why don't you tell us where you're going next?
We are going to be over at the TA in Laredo, Texas, the 19th through the 21st. That's I-35 and the Beltway Parkway. They have 296 parking spots, 15 showers, an IHOP, a Taco Bell, and a Burger King.
Okay, we'll have some pancakes for us, Marty. Take care.
All right. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, you can find that at our website, landlinenow.com. And you can also find the Spirit's complete schedule at the OOIDA website, OOIDA.com. Just go to the main menu and under membership, click on OOIDA on tour. That's our show for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
chrome,
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.